Welcome to Starbound. My name is Chikondi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please quickly check below to see if you've subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free, and it just helps make sure that our videos pop up in your feed more often.
3 rules,
Furzo told his new apprentice.
No females, no hatchlings, no humans.
Vaster turned away from his beam rifle to blink up at his master.
What's a human?
Keep your eyes on the target,
Furzo chided. Vaster gulped, then went back to staring down his scope. The beam rifle was a Glivna 14. It wasn't Furzo's most powerful sniper, but it was the one with the best optics. The Glivna would let Vaster see a target 10 kilometers away, no matter how many walls stood between them. Vaster settled back in behind the rifle, watching a man at a desk. The man was a Wexleyan, ugly creature. It was a 2-armed biped with smooth green skin and white hair. It had no scales, and its teeth were flat. This one was wearing a very pricey-looking multicolored tunic. A rather gaudy collection of platinum charm totems were twined around each arm. The man leaned back in his chair, speaking casually into his comm device, blissfully unaware that death had come for him.
These rules are clad in fate and death,
Furzo continued. Furzo and Vaster were amviri, semi-aquatic carnivores. Furzo's scales were a deep blue. Vaster was green. Like the man at the desk, they were bipeds with 2 arms. Their eyes were large and yellow. Their teeth were sharp. Their hands were webbed and clawed. Each of them wore loose-fitting dark pants and a dark shirt made of Zixa silk. The clothes made Furzo look lean and swift and dangerous. They made his apprentice look a little silly.
They are never to be broken.
Why no females?
Asked Vaster.
Isn't that racist or something?
Sexist,
Furzo corrected.
And it is a bit. We are an ancient order, boy. The no-female rule has been in place since before we reached the stars. In those days, there was only 1 female amviri for every 2,000 males. Killing one was a crime against the species.
It's not like that now, though,
Vaster argued.
Mom says girls are easy to come by.
She would,
Furzo muttered to himself. He spoke up.
Your mother is correct. We've used technology to cheat the hand evolution has dealt us, but the rule remains. No women.
That's a stupid rule,
said Vaster.
It is a rule you will follow,
Furzo countered.
I'm not teaching you to be some petty, worthless thug, boy. We are Zugaroons, the hands of fate. We have standards. You will follow those standards, or you will die.
Die?
The hatchling gulped again.
Yes!
Furzo should have never taken the boy. He hadn't even wanted an apprentice. If anyone but Grizza had asked. Furzo gave a rueful headshake. He never could say no to that woman, even when he should.
The life of a Vugaroon is one of violence, boy. Death is our trade, and death is the price of failure.
The hatchling thought about that.
I don't want to die.
No one does,
Furzo told him.
Do you know what a Vugaroon is, Vaster?
We're hitmen,
Vaster said excitedly.
We travel the stars and kill aliens for money.
Furzo chuckled.
Well, yes, but a Vugaroon is no mere assassin. We are the heralds of fate and death, the knife in the void. In all of the cosmos, there is no group more respected and feared than our order.
He crossed his arms, letting a hint of pride creep into his voice.
We make a lot of money, but that's not why we do what we do. The Vugaroons are the protection of our species. The cosmos are a harsh place, full of those who would do us harm. Our reputation and our skill are the only things keeping them away. No one dares touch the Amvirai for fear a Vugaroon will come.
So we're like hero hitmen.
The boy sounded even more excited. Furzo wasn't sure that was a good thing.
No, boy.
Furzo made his voice grave, hoping to tamp down some of Vaster's enthusiasm.
We aren't heroes. We are weapons. A weapon is neither good nor evil. It can be used for either purpose.
Furzo realized he'd lost track of his original point. He tried again.
We're professional killers, Vastor. The best in the galaxy. It gives us power, but it comes with a price. A Vugaroon can never fail, and he can never break the rules. It is a hard, dangerous path.
The hatchling looked away from his weapon again. He frowned up at Furzo.
Then why'd Mom want me to be one?
I don't think she does,
Furzo admitted.
But the alternative is worse. Your aptitude test registered a genetic deficiency. You were going to be assigned to the lowest caste.
The boy's eyes widened.
The lowest?
The lowest,
Furzo confirmed. It wasn't fair. The boy's malady wouldn't show up until adulthood, and it was treatable. Once Vaster had the enhancements Furzo could give him, no one would even know it was there. Then again, the caste system had never been fair. The upper castes needed someone to be at the bottom, and they weren't particular about who was chosen or why.
You would have worn the yellow vest.
Vaster stared at Furzo for several seconds. He swallowed. Then he nodded.
Okay, so no females.
No females,
Furzo confirmed. He pointed at the beam rifle. Vaster pressed his face back into the optics. Furzo continued the lesson.
The reason we don't kill hatchlings should be obvious. Vugaroons are professionals, and professionals have standards. Children are not to be touched.
What if a kid sees me?
Vaster asked.
Children are not to be touched,
Furzo repeated.
If you fail so spectacularly that a hatchling can identify you, you will accept the consequences.
But what if?
The boy started.
Children are not to be touched,
Furzo said firmly.
No hatchlings. Say it.
No hatchlings,
said Vaster. Furzo grunted. He took a moment to check the area around his vantage point. The Wexleyan in his office was 3 kilometers from where Furzo stood. Furzo was atop the tallest building in the city. Laroon was the Wexleyan capital, a shining metropolis of huge buildings and self-driving hover cars. It was surprisingly clean and organized for such a heavily populated place. Furzo's vantage point was technically a restricted area, but few places were secure enough to stop a Vugaroon. Even with the bumbling apprentice, Furzo had infiltrated with little difficulty. No one had seen or heard him scale the building, and the small force dome he'd set up kept the wind from bothering him. The dome also hid Vaster and him from the eyes, ears, and sensors of the city. The Wexleyan was still talking on his comm device. Furzo didn't need optics to see him. His eyes had been enhanced along with his body. Furzo's body was a weapon, just like Furzo himself. The boy would be the same someday, as long as Furzo didn't fail him.
The third rule is the most important,
Furzo continued.
Killing a female or a hatchling is a disgrace, but killing a human is far worse.
Why?
Vaster demanded.
What's a human?
The most dangerous thing in existence,
Furzo replied.
I thought we were the most dangerous thing.
The boy frowned again.
We would be if humans didn't exist,
Furzo told him.
A human is as far above me as I am above you.
Oh,
Vaster nodded.
They must be really tall.
What?
Furzo frowned.
No, not literally above me.
Furzo wasn't used to trying to explain things to a hatchling. How should he put it?
They are the strongest, fastest, most lethal beings in creation. Humans have rendered hundreds of sapient species extinct. Their technology is so advanced they make Ograns look primitive.
What's an Ogeran?
Vaster asked.
A highly advanced warrior species,
Furzo elaborated.
But that's not the point. The point is, humans are insanely dangerous. If they wanted to wipe out our species, they very easily could.
So that's why we're not supposed to kill them?
Vaster asked.
'Cause they're tough?
One of 3 reasons,
said Furzo.
The fates like their 3s.
His frown deepened.
Maybe I should start at the beginning. Humans come from a planet called Dirt.
Dirt?
The boy's face screwed up.
Was their planet messy or something?
I don't know,
Furzo admitted.
That's just what they call it. Planet Dirt.
Weird,
said Vaster.
They're an odd species,
Furzo agreed.
Dirt was a death world, a Class 8.
He realized Vaster wouldn't know what that meant.
Everything was trying to kill everything else all the time. Volcanoes hurled molten rock and toxic gas. Winds lashed with so much force they could destroy buildings. Fires and floods raged. The microbes were so virulent and adaptable that Dirt is still considered a plague world, and its ecosystems contain some of the most brutal predation cycles ever recorded. Even the plants were murderous.
The plants?
The boy's eyes were wide.
They have plants that trap creatures and digest them alive,
Furzo told him.
Fungus that can take over a living body. Poisons and sharp projections and tangling vines. All kinds of things. That is the world humans evolved in. They were forced to constantly fight and adapt. They faced predators that could bite through steel or run 120 kilometers an hour. Insects so venomous a single bite would kill. Even the herbivores were lethal. 6-ton quadrupeds with tentacle noses. Herds of herbivores with horns and sharp feet. There was even a 2-meter-tall bird called emu. The emus are the only species to ever win a war against humans.
Scary,
said the boy.
I notice you're not watching the target,
Furzo reminded him. Vaster quickly pressed his face back into the beam rifle's optics.
The harsh environment forced humans to evolve quickly,
Furzo continued.
They invented weapons and war before they discovered agriculture. They also developed a very interesting way to hunt.
He leaned closer, voice low.
They hunt with fear.
Fear?
The boy looked up at him.
Eyes on the target.
Furzo pointed at the rifle. He continued.
Humans were weaker than the wildlife of their world. Slower. What they did have was endurance. Humans could run for days without rest. They would run up on an animal, scare it, get it running. Then they would follow.
Wouldn't the animal get away?
Vaster asked.
Since it's faster?
Maybe sometimes,
Furzo allowed.
But humans were excellent trackers. They'd chase the beast, keep it scared, keep it running. The creature wouldn't be given a chance to eat or drink or rest. It would just keep running until it couldn't anymore, until it fell.
The boy turned to look again. Furzo pointed at the beam rifle.
The humans would run the beasts to death. If the exertion didn't kill them outright, They'd come in for the kill when the animals were too tired to fight back.
He gave an amused grunt.
That's assuming they didn't chase the beasts off a cliff. Some tribes based their whole way of life on chasing large animals off cliffs. They called it the buffalo jump.
Buffalo jump?
The boy kept his eyes on the beam rifle's optics this time. Furzo was pleased. The boy was listening. The assassin continued.
A buffalo is a herd animal, an aggressive quadruped about as tall as I am. They weigh up to 1,200 kilograms. They have sharp hooves instead of feet, and they can run 72 kilometers an hour. Humans would run up on a herd and scare them so bad they'd literally jump off a cliff to escape.
Holy scat!
The boy swore.
Language,
Furzo chided.
The point is that humans were evolved to kill and to dominate. They are adaptive, intelligent, and frighteningly creative. The first species to discover the creatures didn't understand that. They tried to conquer the dirtlings, make them slaves.
I bet they didn't like that,
Vaster guessed.
No, they didn't,
Furzo confirmed.
Barely a week into the invasion, the humans the Tylovians had captured broke free. They killed the Tylovians, took their ships, and reverse-engineered their technology. The Tylovian Empire and its allies sent fleet after fleet trying to pacify the humans, but the dirtlings killed them all. In just under 10 revolutions around their star, the creatures built a mighty fleet and ground the Empire and its allies to dust. They didn't leave a single survivor. That event would set the standard for how the dirtlings interact with the galaxy. The void is vast and full of monsters. The humans set out to slay them. They were determined to find evil and replace it with death.
So they're heroes?
Vaster asked. He looked up with wide eyes. Furzo pointed at the beam rifle again.
They thought so at the time, said Furzo. For 3 centuries, they traveled the cosmos. They slaughtered slavers, uplifted the downtrodden, and destroyed those that preyed on the innocent. When the nanophage was unleashed, it was the humans who rose to face it.
The nanophage?
Vaster asked.
What's that?
It was a weapon,
Furzo explained.
One of the greatest horrors ever conceived. A species called the Nivma designed it to help them win a war. The nanophage was a nanotechnological plague. Tiny robots that functioned like a virus. They would infect people, kill them, and reanimate the bodies. The reanimated corpses would attack more people, spreading the infection. Over time, the nanophage would rebuild the infected bodies, making them stronger and smarter and faster. They formed a hive mind and learned to use technology. The nanophage spread quickly, Furzo continued. The little machines would be dropped into a planet's water supply. Within days, the whole world would be infected. Within weeks, the infected would build ships. They would launch the entire population into the stars, seeking new worlds to infect. By the time the humans knew what was happening, hundreds of worlds had been infected, and billions of ships traveled the void, filled with the infected. One of those fleets of infected came for the Amvirai.
Us?
The boy looked up again, blinking both sets of eyelids.
Keep your eyes on the target, boy.
Furzo kept his voice steady, trying to hide his irritation. Had he been that undisciplined as a hatchling? Probably. That didn't make it any less annoying. The boy turned back to his weapon.
We could just shoot him, you know.
You're not here to shoot him,
Furzo told him.
We're just here to watch.
Watch what?
Asked Vaster.
You'll see,
Furzo told him. He took up the story again.
The nanophage came for us. Thousands of ships. Our people were much more primitive than we are now. We'd been spacefaring for less than a century. The upper castes gathered our fleets. We threw everything we had at the infected. It was not enough. The nanophage burned through us. They destroyed our ships, crushed our defenses, and moved to take the planet itself. Then they stopped.
Stopped?
asked Vaster.
Why'd they stop?
We didn't know at first,
said Furzo.
A few days later, the humans appeared. Only then did we learn what they had done. The Dirtlings had captured some of the more advanced infected. They'd used them to tap into the hive mind of the nanophage. They shut down the hive mind, putting all of the infected to sleep. They would spend the next 40 revolutions destroying every single speck of nanophage they could find. That is the second reason we do not kill humans. The Dirtlings saved our species. More than once.
The nanophage came back?
The boy gasped.
No,
Furzo frowned.
Well, actually, yes, but the humans wiped them out before they could spread again. But no, the Dirtlings saved us from different threats. Have you heard of the multiplicity?
The boy shook his head.
It's a shapeshifter. Every piece of it is connected to the whole, no matter how far apart they are.
Furzo shuddered. He'd never encountered the multiplicity personally, but he'd seen the footage. His order had made sure he'd know what to look for.
They eat other creatures, then make copies to replace them. Perfect copies, from the DNA right down to the memories. The multiplicity devoured and replaced entire species. It was cunning, voracious, and immune to most weapons. Only extreme heat or molecular disintegration could harm it.
Did the humans come and kill it?
Vastor guessed.
We don't know if they killed it,
Furzo admitted.
Each piece of the multiplicity is connected to the rest. It won't die as long as a single molecule remains. The humans did kill every piece of it they could find. They found one of our colonies had been taken over, burned the world and destroyed every ship that hailed from it. They stopped the last ship a mere half light year from our homeworld. If they hadn't,
Furzo shook his head.
There would be no Amviri, only monsters.
The void really is full of monsters,
said the boy.
Isn't it?
More than you know,
Furzo agreed. He saw a man enter the target's building. The man was shaped like a Wexleyan, but his ears were round. His skin was brown, and his hair was black. Instead of the colorful clothes of the Wexleyan people, he wore black slacks, a black jacket, and a white shirt with a black tie. Human attire.
There! Look in the lobby, boy. It's about to start.
It took a few moments for Furzo to help the boy adjust the rifle's optics. By the time he had, the human was speaking to a receptionist, a female Wexleyan in a rainbow dress, draped in bangles.
Do you see him? The brown one?
I see him,
said Vaster.
He's dressed weird.
The receptionist was becoming more alarmed as the human spoke. Furzo couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could guess. The woman pressed a button below her desk. An alarm. A moment later, several Wexleyans entered the lobby. They were covered in metal. Power armor. They surrounded the human, pointing weapons. Heavy ordnance, Furzo noted. High-powered assault blasters, each capable of destroying a hovercar with a single shot. The Wexleyans were shouting, forming a circle around the intruder. The human smiled. Then he disappeared. He reappeared behind one of the men, his hand blurred, punching through the back of the security guard's armor and out through the front. The pulped remains of the guard's heart could be seen in the human's hand.
Holy scat!
Vaster exclaimed.
Did you see that?
Language!
Furzo snapped.
Keep watching.
The Wexleans stared in horror for a moment. Then they started shooting. Great bolts of superheated particles shot forth, exploding on impact. They tore holes through the building and the receptionist's desk. One of them hit the receptionist. She exploded. None of the blasts touched the human. The man flickered from one guard to the next, tearing through them like a vibroblade through thin cloth. Heads and hearts and limbs were removed with bloody ease. Vaster watched. Furzo's enhancements told him the kid's heart was pounding in his chest.
How's he doing that?
The boy wondered.
I don't know, said Furzo. Could be teleportation or time dilation, or maybe he's just that fast.
The guards were dead, but more were rushing in from all over the building. Slabs of metal slammed down over the elevators and the exits. The human looked up. He bared his teeth at the security camera. Furzo looked away from the man long enough to check on the target. The businessman in his fancy office was talking on his comm device again, but there was nothing casual about it. He was yelling, face flushed as he watched the carnage on his console screen. The human spoke. Furzo couldn't hear him. The man strolled up to an elevator and casually tore through the slab of metal blocking it off. Then he tore the elevator itself open and ripped his way to the next floor. 30 guards with assault blasters were waiting.
This is why we are here,
Furzo told the boy.
The man I had you watching is a target, but he's not our target. Now his killer has come.
He's so fast,
said the boy. The human had already killed all 30 guards. He strolled past the bodies, making his way to a stairwell. More guards were running down it. He killed them too.
Why doesn't he just run up there and kill the guy?
Because he knows the target is watching, said Furzo. He wants the Wexleyan to see, to be afraid. He wants him to know he can't be stopped.
The boy considered that.
I can stop him.
That's not why we're here,
Furzo told him.
No, I can do it,
the boy insisted.
He's just walking.
Furzo noted the human strolling down a hallway on the second floor.
No, boy,
Furzo started.
It's an easy shot,
said Vaster.
Look!
No!
Furzo shouted. He reached for the boy. He was too late. The child squeezed the trigger. Furzo found himself gripping the hatchling's shoulder uselessly. The gun clicked. Of course it did. Furzo was not stupid enough to hand a loaded weapon to a child. He'd taken it a step further and removed the firing mechanism. The beam rifle was basically just a fancy set of binoculars at this point. Furzo was still mortified that his apprentice had just tried to shoot a human.
Idiot fool boy!
The Vugaroon shouted.
Do you know what you just...
Furzo trailed off. The human had stopped. The man turned slowly. Furzo's mouth went dry.
I told you that I could...
The boy started to protest. Then he noticed.
The gun didn't work.
Furzo ignored his idiot apprentice. The human was facing him. The man looked through the walls of the building, staring across 3 kilometers. His gaze pierced Furzo's camouflaged dome, staring directly into the assassin's eyes.
Is he?
Vaster swallowed.
Is he looking at us?
They can feel when they're being watched,
Furzo murmured. He stared back at the human.
He sensed your killing intent.
People can't do that.
The little fool sounded so sure of himself. Didn't he realize he'd just gotten them killed?
Humans can.
Furzo moved slowly. He let go of the boy's shoulder and stood. He gave the human an embarrassed wave. The monster's eyes narrowed.
That's a human?
The boy frowned up at Furzo.
But you said they were big.
Quiet, boy,
Furzo ordered. He pointed down at his apprentice. Then he raised both hands in a helpless gesture and shrugged. Kids, the gesture said, what can you do? The human glared at Furzo. He raised 2 fingers. He pointed them at his own eyes. Then he pointed them at Furzo and his apprentice. Furzo allowed himself to look afraid. He kept his hands raised and gave a slow, terrified nod. The dirtling glared for a few moments more. Then he turned and resumed his slow walk down the hallway. Furzo let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding.
10 revolutions ago,
The assassin said quietly,
a band of pirates stumbled across a damaged human ship. They managed to take it, and they killed the 2 humans aboard it. Little did they know, the humans had a hatchling, a child. The boy had been stuffed into an escape pod and launched back to human space.
Why didn't the gun work?
asked Vaster.
Because it's not supposed to,
Furzo snapped.
I told you we're here to watch. If you try to shoot someone without permission again, I'll send you back to your mother. You'll spend the rest of your life cleaning up scat in a yellow vest.
The boy quailed. Furzo cursed himself. He was a Vugaroon. Losing control was not acceptable. The boy had erred because Furzo had failed him. Furzo knew hatchlings were stupid. He should have explained better and more quickly. He should have been more careful. The fault was Furzo's. Furzo took a steadying breath. He let it out through his nostrils.
The lesson isn't over, boy. Keep watching, but keep your hands away from the trigger. You can speak and ask questions, but don't do anything unless I tell you to.
He gripped Vaster's shoulder again, trying to impart the seriousness of the situation.
Our lives depend on it. Do you understand?
The boy nodded. Furzo resisted the urge to raise his voice.
Say it, Vastor.
I understand,
said the apprentice.
Keep my finger off the trigger and don't do anything until you say.
Good.
Furzo let go of the boy and stood back.
Now, where was I?
It took him a moment to remember. Furzo continued.
The pirates plundered the human ship. The technology they stole made them rich. Most of them squandered it, but a few used it to acquire more power. The target we're watching was able to start a corporation with ties to the Wexleyan crime syndicates. He is now one of the richest, most well-protected members of his species. He is also the last of the pirates. The human has spent the last month killing the rest.
He's the son, isn't he?
asked Vaster.
Yes.
Furzo let out another breath, forcing his heart to slow its hammering.
The third reason we never kill humans is the most important. Humans as a species are obsessed with revenge.
Revenge?
Vaster was frowning, but at least he kept his eyes on the optics. The human was on the 4th floor now. He ripped apart anyone that tried to stop him, but he didn't bother with anyone else. Terrified office workers ran or hid. The human ignored them.
Most species believe in revenge,
Furzo clarified.
But not like humans do. It fills their stories and songs. It is at the core of who they are. They were evolved to dominate, to destroy everything that hurts them. Humans always retaliate. They don't care what it takes or what the process will do to them. A wronged human will devote their entire lives to making their enemy pay.
The human cleared the 6th floor. His target finally got wise. The Wexleyan gave up for calling for help on his comm device. He raced over to his private elevator. The elevator took him to the roof. An armored hovercar was waiting.
I could have hit him,
the boy boasted,
if the gun worked.
Furzo doubted the beam rifle was powerful enough to kill the human, but he decided that argument would be a waste of time.
If you had, he told the boy, the other Zugaroons would kill us both. They'd send our heads to the human's closest relative, along with a note of apology and a very nice card.
I thought we didn't kill kids,
the boy argued.
For something like this,
Furzo scowled,
they'd make an exception.
The human looked up. He disappeared. He reappeared between the Wexleyan and the hover car. The dirtling tore the armor off the car and ripped out the engine. The Wexleyan pulled a blaster. The dirtling appeared beside him. He gripped the target's arm and squeezed. The Wexleyan screamed. The blaster fell from a mangled, useless arm. To his credit, the Wexleyan tried to fight. A fist lashed out. The human dodged with ease. The Wexleyan swept a leg out in a roundhouse kick. The human caught his foot and squeezed. The Wexleyan fell. Furzo could almost hear the screams. While the human broke the target's bones, Furzo continued the story.
As time went on, the humans became more and more disillusioned. The species they'd befriended turned from them. Some resented them. Some feared them. Some simply couldn't tolerate the brutal way the humans dealt with their enemies. The final straw was the betrayal of the Ovalans. They were the Dirtlings' closest allies, but their government changed hands, and the new leaders craved the humans' power.
More bones broke. The human took his time. Ankles, tibia, knees. Furzo kept talking.
The Ovalans tried to take out the Dirtling leadership in a single coordinated strike. They hired the best assassins they could find. They contracted a Vugaroon to kill the human hegemon.
I thought we don't kill humans,
Vaster pointed out.
This was 200 years ago, Furzo told him. We didn't have that rule yet. He continued. The Vugaroon succeeded, but the humans caught him. They learned who had sent him. The Dirtlings slaughtered the Ovalan government. They tried to spare the rest of the species, but their former friends were incensed. A war followed.
What about the Zugaroon?
Asked Vaster.
Did they declare war on us too?
We thought they would,
said Furzo.
Our entire species braced for destruction, but the humans held back. The Zugaroon was killed, but the Dirtlings spared the rest of us. The humans saved our species 3 times, Vaster. The 3rd time, they saved us from themselves.
The Dirtling finished his grisly work. Every joint of the Wexleyan's limbs was twisted and broken, but the man was alive. He probably wished he wasn't. The human looked over, meeting Furzo's eyes for the 2nd time. The boy noticed. Vastor gave him a wave.
Don't wave at him,
Furzo chastised the boy.
Didn't I tell you not to do anything without my say-so?
Sorry,
said the boy. Furzo looked back at the human. He was gone. The assassin's relief was short-lived. A sound came from behind him, a pained cry. Furzo turned slowly. The Dirtling was behind him. He was covered in blood. One hand was holding the broken Wexleyan by the shirt. The former pirate's face was smeared with blood and tears and mucus. His eyes focused on Furzo.
Zugaroon!
The man wheezed. Vaster finally noticed there was someone behind him. The boy jerked upright, lugging the beam rifle as he turned himself around. Furzo snatched the rifle from the boy and tossed it off the roof. It was an expensive piece of equipment, but Furzo's life was worth more. The broken Wexleyan got louder.
You're a Zugaroon! You gotta help me! I'll pay whatever you want! No!
Furzo said shortly. The Dirtling glanced at the Wexleyan in annoyance. He reached up and crushed the man's jaw. His glare settled on Furzo. Furzo gave a respectful bow.
My apologies for earlier, Sir Human. My apprentice is new and a bit...
He quickly racked his brain for a diplomatic way to say stupid.
Excitable.
Sorry, Sir Human,
said the boy.
I thought...
Furzo gave the child a withering glare. He fell silent. The Dirtling regarded them for a moment. He spoke. Why are you watching me?
A lesson,
Furzo bowed again.
For the boy. He needs to learn who is an acceptable target.
He met the human's eyes.
And who is not?
The dirtling considered. Did you tell him the phrase?
Not yet, Sir Human.
Furzo turned to the boy.
Vaster, there's a phrase the humans use. If you ever hear it, stop whatever it is that you are doing.
What's the phrase?
Asked the apprentice. Fuck around, the human growled, and find out.
That's bad language,
said Vaster.
Just remember the phrase,
Furzo ordered, exasperated. The human's lips twitched. He turned back to Furzo. I'd better not see you again.
If I ever find you near,
Furzo promised,
all you will see of me is my back.
You're going to moon him?
Vaster asked, aghast. Furzo turned to stare at the boy. A sound came from the human, a choking noise. It was the human. He appeared to be trying not to laugh. He failed. His guffaws shook the Wexleyan in his hand. The broken man gave a high-pitched, gurgling moan. The human looked over at the man, then laughed harder. He was still laughing when he disappeared. Furzo stared at the place where the dirtling had been. He checked the area, but the human was gone. The Zoogaroon once again forced himself to be calm. His voice was steady as he spoke to the boy.
So, 3 rules.
The hatchling's eyes were wide. He pulled himself together enough to speak.
No females. No hatchlings.
He swallowed.
No humans.
No humans,
Furzo confirmed.
Never, ever humans.